And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another weekly review with The Robot, brought to you by the Movie Pope. And here he is, bolts and nuts akimbo, The Robot.
Hail! Caesar by the Coen Brothers from 2016 takes us back to the good old days when Hollywood studios were all about making good movies. Well, good compared to the dreck we're seeing today. This movie centers around a studio exec as he's trying to run a tight ship in 1950s Hollywood, all the while he's got to find a way to recover one of the studio's heavy hitters after he's been unceremoniously kidnapped and brainwashed by a cabal of socialist screenwriters. Try saying that 6 times, it's pretty meager, as well, since the title of this movie comes from that of one of the many productions in the movie. Like the old play within a play kind of deal. George Clooney has the honors of playing the leading man, Baird Whitlock, who becomes the stooge in the US versus Soviet Union thrown down in Tinseltown and whose kidnapping drives the central plot of his movie. Along the way we run into Scarlett Johansen, Channing Tatum, Ralph Fiennes, and Tilda Swinton, just to name a few. Frances McDormand makes a brief appearance too, which is a big change considering how in previous Coen Brothers films she normally played the lead. Or one of them, anyway, while we follow Mannix in his work to make sure the studio doesn't implode from the numerous scandals and hiccups brought on by its many stars. We get to see what goes on behind the studio doors. So, buckle in and hold on tight. This isn't something you're going to see on the Universal Studio Tour. Not that any of this would ever come up anyway. It's nice to see what old Hollywood was like, even if it's done as a parody. Watching those old school movies from the 50s and 60s today, the acting comes off as hammy. When you think about it, Shatner's acting method wasn't anything unique but rather par for the course. It's kind of like a slice of life flick, really, except it's all focused on Tinseltown. You get to see what it's like making a historical epic, a musical romp, a classy British drama, a good old cowboy flick, and mermaids swimming around a pool. Yeah, that used to be a thing back then. Sure, they were different in style and substance, but they were all managed by neurotic people who were constantly on edge, trying to get these pictures completed on time and in the can. Oh, sure, you can mock them for their campiness, because they all had that to degrees. Seriously, ever watch Spartacus with Kirk Douglas? It's cheesy as it is grandiose, and yet it's not necessarily a bad thing. What the Coen Brothers give us here isn't a history lesson, but a peek behind the curtain. We get to see what went into making those classics that our grandparents and parents loved and what informed generations of filmmakers going forward. And we've learned a lot since then, along with seeing technology catch up to where now pressing a single button can generate battle scenes, cityscapes, and effects that took days or weeks for them to make 60-something years ago. The problem is, nowadays we're becoming too overly reliant on them to where now the effects are telling the stories, not the people. Looking at you, Michael Bay. The story centers around our neighborhood-friendly Hollywood studio exec Edward Mannix as he juggles a plethora of productions, all the while trying to make sure the press don't get any dirt on his stars that could possibly ruin their careers and the studio's rep. All the while, he's also dealing with one of his stars getting kidnapped by commies, which is never a good thing even for a seasoned vet. Oh, and Lockheed Martin's calling to him, and he's listening, because Mannix here has become jaded and is entertaining a fresh change of scenery. Yes, pun intended, Mannix exemplifies the late 20th century man. Very stoic, very calculating, and thinking on his feet as he puts out fires as quickly as they're popping up. And while it may come off as a parody to 21st century audiences, this was the typical expectation for men during that time, especially given a lot of them were coming home from Europe and the Pacific following the end of World War II. While Mannix gives off this aura of an unflappable, nothing can break him macho man, he does struggle to figure out what he's doing with his life. Is he actually making a difference, or is he just an overpaid nanny? But, when all's said and done, Mannix comes to see that his job is anything but simple. What he's doing doesn't define him, but it does make him feel needed, because it gives him a purpose onto which he can figure out where he's heading in life and decide if it's something to brag about at the end of the day, barring anything scandalous, of course. Basically, our friend Baird Whitlock has been kidnapped and is being worked on by commie sympathizers to flit to the Soviet Union. A classic Cold War caper, right? The entire plan is to get the studios to pay the ransom, and Whitlock becomes their mole in the capitalist machine, working to bring them down from the inside. Well, that was the idea, except writers and actors have as much influence as fleas on a dog. Sorry, no offense to writers and actors. You guys do a phenomenal job and are the lifeblood of the industry. Mannix, meanwhile, is having to deal with two nosy muckrakers who are eager to get the skinny as they are to divulge what's going on. And Whitlock is Mannix's top priority because the movie Hail Caesar cannot be completed without its leading man. When Whitlock finally reappears, he's not quite himself, but who's noticing? When he starts spewing the Marxist lines he's picked up, Mannix gives him a hard knock lesson to straighten him out, and everything just goes back to normal. It's as simple as that, and isn't that what the idealized past is? Just a simpler time with simple solutions, sure, and the screenwriters, for all their plotting, end up with absolutely nothing, which sort of ties into the good wins, evil loses motif, which was ubiquitous in storytelling back in the day. Yet, we know that isn't entirely the case. These were guys who felt their contributions weren't appreciated. Even the actors, when they screw up, their foul-ups are flea bites in the body Hollywood. The little guy tries to speak up, either through harebrained schemes or personal indiscretions, and they get tamped down like a used-up cigarette. At the end of the day, the Coen Brothers give us another dark comedy seemingly set in a distant land and time that is simultaneously familiar. Their movies are set in our world, but there's a mythological element about them, like Shangri-La or Camelot. In Fargo, we can readily believe that Minnesota is a charming place filled with good-hearted people whose paradise is spoiled by the crazed ninnies. In No Country for Old Men, we know that taciturn assassins wander the highways and byways of the Southwest very much like the old-school westerns of yesterday. And even in Burn After Reading, we're introduced to a Washington, D.C., where the political sniping and conniving is nonsensically presented as something that is entirely true. Here, we're given a Hollywood of the past where we can believe that things like this really did happen, but it's so removed from our contemporary world that we can only access it through the imagination. The people and places in these movies are as mythological to us as Hercules and Achilles were to the ancient Greeks. Sure, they lived in our world, but we've no way of accessing them. And isn't that what storytelling is all about? Hail Caesar is one of those films that, for me at least, offers us a glimpse to sit back and enjoy the filmmaking process while never seeing the final product itself. And I'm okay with that. Thanks for watching, and if you don't mind, please leave us a like. It helps a lot. And while you're at it, subscribe so you never miss an episode drop. This is the Robot signing off.